I've worked in 13 inches, and well, you work, it's bloody slavery. In 13 inches, it's not work at all. I've worked in 2'8", which is lovely height to work in, lovely. You get on your knees, at your ease. That's a rhyme, isn't it?
My dad worked here all his life, 45 years, roughly 45 years anyway. And then he retired about 12 months ago. And he died last July. And as you can see, the pit's died with him. It was 300 years this pit was alive. And at one time, there was 1,400 men working here, just a matter of about 7 years ago.
This is Harrowton, 1961. Jack Elliott, his father and his grandfather spent their working lives here. Now Jack too has gone, and the world of pit and village which brought men of his quality into being has gone as well. Except for one thing, the film camera. In 1961 I asked Jack to tell me, in front of a camera, what he'd learnt from life. Now Mrs. Elliott and the family have given us permission to use the film in tribute to a man, a pit and a community.
On this occasion, as we meet to think for a few moments of our friend Jack Elliott and to bid him farewell, it is for us, the living, to reaffirm that friendliness and sympathy with our fellow citizens that is the foundation stone of the good society and which was exemplified so clearly in the life of Jack Elliott. We seek the happiness and welfare of all humanity.
Jack was an atheist. This is William Griffin, a Newcastle City Councillor, a humanist.
For the best of all answers to death is the wholehearted enjoyment and affirmation of life while we are here. That affirmation was made consciously and cheerfully at all times by Jack. He would have thought it ironic that his death coincided with the passing of the pit, where he and his family had always worked. Harrowton Colliery.
I was on the long wall face for 25 years, which is a long time, and you get used with the work, working on your knees. And I was asked to take a job on a 4'6" seam, which was quite different. An awkward height, 4'6", because I'm 6 foot. And I had to drill, cut. It was a sort of a composite job. And I was drilling, and I happened to turn. It was wet in the bottom, sticky. My feet stuck when I turned, but my back didn't. I had to snap. But I kept on walking my shift in that height. Never felt it much till I tried to straighten up at the end of my shift. I've never experienced such pain in all my life. How the world I got out by, I never know yet. I was off work 2 years. I had 2 operations. When I went into the hospital, I was lying in bed, and this nurse came round on her rounds with a bottle of liquid stuff and started rubbing my hips. She says, "What the world's this on your hips? This hard, thick skin." I says, "Well, hard-working corns." I says, "By the way, what are you doing?" She says, "I'm rubbing you for bed sores." I says, "Bed sores? God Christ." I says, "Just how you shoe full of bloody coals in the I'll be happy, I can lie here all day.
For the best of all answers to death is the wholehearted enjoyment and affirmation of life while we are here.
When Jack Elliott died of lung cancer in July last year, he left a family as independent and characteristic as he was himself. Doreen, who works part-time at the local primary school, his only daughter, married with 2 children. To Em, Jack's widow, the village has totally changed.
Change of work and more money is bound to have an effect. That it might mean better jobs.
There are 3 boys. 2 followed their father down the pit, but the eldest, Peter, went into engineering. Born 2 years before the great Durham miners' strike, he grew up hating the mines, became a draftsman. The youngest, Len, was a fitter at the pit until it closed, found work in a Gateshead factory. The other son, John, took me to Harriton to see the end of the old Nova Scotia mine.
These were the records that we had to keep when the pit finished. We were told, take all the records up and sell them because they wanted. Look at them scattered all over the place. Dirk Jenkinson. He's foreman now at Dorden, that lad. 4th East South Codgerane, that's the tail end of a belt. New bear and down roller fitted. 2nd East trunk, gear head. Spur wheel guard refitted. Lugs broken off. New guard required. Now, funny enough, that district there was one of the wettest and most horrible districts in the pit. And the fellow that's in charge of the demolition was the overman that was in charge of that scene. There you are, there's about 6 years' work for fitters and electricians. Daily records all just lying scattered around here. In the corner, this is where we had the hot water system for the wash basins. Tell you what that is. It's just me Alan Grove's scarf, that. Been lying there since he left. He got a job with the water board, that lad. He left the NCB when the pit closed. I remember the first time I saw my dad coming out the pit after I'd started here. This great big fella, all black, came up and asked me for a cigarette. And I had to look at him twice before I realised that it was my dad.
With the death of the mine, I think you're going to get the death of a village at the same time, which is a tragedy to me because it's such village life as it was then when the pit was really in production, was such a wonderful thing. There was this feeling of companionship that existed, and I remember feeling it even as a band coming up here to wait for me dad. And even bringing these grandbairns up to see him, going down the shaft, they thought was a wonderful thing to see their granda moving up onto the ramp and then disappearing into the cage. That it's all just gone now, which is a pity.
After I left school, I had a week's on the grass and I started straight down the pit. Actually, my father wanted me to be an engineer or a mechanic, but all my mates and friends were pit lads, so I said, no, I'm going to the pit, and I'm going straight down the pit. And I'll never forget my first day down the pit, not as long as I live. Your first gear was a whip. You had to have a whip. And your bait poke on your arm with your luncheon, as you call it, your bottle in your pocket, off you would go to the pit, a man. I can remember every little detail of that first shift, even to the lamp number, 566, bonny, shiny oil lamp. Me whip stuck down my belt, proper pitman. Now, as a matter of fact, this whip, it was a nuisance. The first pony I got to drive, I had 2 days training with an older chap. 2 days training, and Jimmy the Gallower. He was the fastest, daftest, bloody Gallower ever I've seen in my life. A whip, I says, what in the hell? I says, I want somebody to stop this bugger, never mind about making garn. Jimmy had one, he could catch pigeons. I says, I think I'd better leave this whip at home after this, or tie his legs with it. My first pay, I think it was £1, 1 penny. It was easy to remember, all ones. Been a hell of a lot of ones since too, believe me. Then it went up to about 25 shilling, and it didn't seem to get any higher than that till I started on the cutters as a cleaner back.
For centuries, the fiery community of the Durham coal pits turned skinny boys into iron men. Down underground in the deep seams, pitmen forged a unity from which they could laugh at life and fight for independence. You started young, picking on the coal screens, morning to dusk like a galley slave, until in the end accident or one of the old enemies got you, silicosis or hernia or rheumatism, 20, 30, 40 years later. But you stayed together all the time, and the Durham pits moulded a race of big hewers, small men mostly, but bold in their work and bloody-minded in resistance to the owners. The masters were tough people too, tough and arrogant, and they fought back, strike on one side, lock out on the other. Blackleg, the nastiest word you could shout, the man who worked while his mates stayed firm. In 1926, it was the Durham men who held out the longest, and the strike marked their memories like some long and terrible retreat.
The strike, well, we started off with £1 or 2 that we had saved up, not very much, and
About 5.
About £5. We tried to make that spin out, because we didn't know how long the strike would actually last. But the money shot went, and then the coals went. We were seeking coals, firewood, anything that would burn to cook, because there was you couldn't afford electric or gas. And I've walked as far as 8 mile with a barrow, a couple of bags of coal on the way down Walridge, up on the fells, and up Kosher Pit Heap, digging a heap. Worked in places there that we wouldn't dream of walking down the pit. Would have won danger money, and the rest of it had to work for the coals. But then things got progressively worse and worse, and money run out altogether. No more money left in the unions. We did get a wee bit help from abroad, the foreign unions, Russia and America. And we started with these vouchers. The cooperative stores honoured these vouchers. We got 8 shillings a week for to keep 3 of us. That's Mum and me and the wee laddie Peter. And it was hard.
Peter was just a baby, and the problem was, of course, trying to keep your morale going on an empty belly, which was a very, very difficult thing. And I remember being so awfully hungry one time. We got these vouchers on Friday, and we got this was Thursday, and we'd had very, very little to eat. And I'd had made some rice pudding for Peter with the last of the milk, the dried milk that was allocated to us because we had a baby. And there was a fishman came round with herring, 5 a penny. And we were awfully hungry, and we had only 1 halfpenny that in my purse at the time, and we hunted around and found another halfpenny. We bought the 5 herring, and it was the most delicious meal that I've ever eaten in my life. We had to cook it in water because we hadn't any fat, but we were so desperately hungry.
And we just took it out. We could have gone for another job, I dare say. I was asked many times, but I wouldn't. I said, no, I'm not. I'll be as bad as a blackleg if I go to get another job now.
You know, there's a lot of talk about the courage of blacklegs, but I often wonder how strong the courage would have been if they hadn't had police protection and buses to take them back and forwards to work.
But we never had a blackleg mine at Harrogate Quarry, I will say that, where I worked, but at Birtley New Pit. And I was living at Birtley at the time when I was first married. We did have blacklegs.
Everybody gathered the first shift that he worked to watch this man come home. It was the ice cream man that Jack talked about. There was a whole crowd gathered, and from the bus pulling in until the man got out and went to his home. There wasn't one solitary word. There was a deep, intense silence, and they just sort of moved forward very slowly, you know, and stopped. Of course, the police were there and wouldn't allow them to go too far. And it was a frightening sort of a thing. How the man could carry on. He must have felt the feeling that the people were going through, that they were aiming for betterment for his own class of people.
It went on for 9 months.
We often are criticised for being bitter, but I'm bitter, and I think that everybody ought to keep a small feeling of bitterness inside them, on whatever grounds, industrial, fighting, wars, anything. They ought to keep this little feeling of bitterness. Otherwise, they'll become so complacent and so contented that they'll become stagnant. But if they can only remember that little bit of bitterness, that these things were, and that these things could happen again. I suppose, basically, people fight for these things, excuse me, for their children, the children's children, but they know that whatever good comes to their children, that it must affect all of the children of working class people. I don't even only mean working class people, but I think that people in a higher society has to be educated. They are appallingly ignorant, I think, about life actually. I don't have much time for the middle classes. They're what we're saying we have around here. They have lace curtains and kipper dinners. It's all outward show.
The miner was always looked down on as something little less than human at one time. We always found that. I suppose thought we had horns sticking out, but it's not so. There's some very, very gentle miners.
The pit had a terrific influence, not only on my dad, but on the family as a whole. I know I always used to think of my dad as a hero, because I always think that anybody that works hard for their living or has a dangerous job, to me, is much more of a man. And for all my dad was 6'2", to me he always seemed 7 feet, because he worked down the pit. And I suppose this influenced me, the fact that he worked hard. But I never used to be frightened about my dad. I never had any fear of him being killed down the pit, because he always seemed such a capable man, being able to take care of himself. And he used to joke such a lot about the work that it took a lot of the dangers out of it for us. Whether he did this to sort of put our minds at ease, I'll never know. But to me, pit work always seemed one big joke as far as my dad was concerned. The only time that I ever heard him, there was any bitterness or any really deep feeling was in the songs that he sang about the miners, and then all the bitterness and all the pathos came out in these songs.
Jowl, jowl and listen, lad, you'll hear that cold face walking. There's many a marrow missing, lad, because he wouldn't listen, lad. The deputy crawls from flat to flat, the putter arms the chumming, and the man at the face must gnaw his place like a mother gnaws her young'uns. So jowl, jowl, and listen, lad, you'll hear that cold face walking. There's many a marrow missing, lad, because he wouldn't listen, lad.
In these later years, the ability of Jack to get on with everyone has manifested itself in the growth of the local folk music movement, which has spread out from Jack, from Mrs. Elliott and the family, like a ripple in a pond into which a pebble has been cast, until the movement has spread all over the North Country.
To change your lodgings, lads, you'll have to change your beer. But leave your picks behind you, you'll ne'er need them again. And off you go to Nottingham, join Robin's merry men. Ye brave bold men of...
One by one, the older Durham pits have been closing for years, the villages turning into Tyneside factory estates. Jack and the boys talked about this 6 years ago, but no one knew then how soon it would come.
Why, I mean, you say you get, in a pit village, you get the majority of the men working at the pit. Yeah. They're all tied up, possibly 9/10 of them working at the pit and at the same pit. Yes. Now, the fortunes of that colliery affect the fortunes of practically everybody in that in that pit, in that village. If the pit's doing badly, the village is doing badly. Yeah. And this year, everybody's doing badly, and they can share that the hard times. If the pit's doing well, everybody in the village is doing well, and they enjoy that among themselves. Now then, if you close the pit and they go out to various industries, you get the picture where one industry's doing badly, which will affect perhaps a tenth of the village. Yeah. They're doing badly, but the other 9/10, they're doing well. You see, and they say, why, it's hard lines, but we're all right, the majority of the village.
The friendliness has always been there, and it always will be. This neighbourliness. Your next door neighbour, 2 doors away, 3 doors away, you know everybody in 30 houses of you.
I think this feeling of belonging, of a continuity with the past, a feeling of this is your kind. This is what we're losing, and this idea of the world becoming smaller. But is it? Do we honestly, can we honestly say we feel neighbours with France? I don't think so. Not the sort of neighbourliness that Pop was talking about, this feeling of belonging.
What should happen, it should start from a small community, go out to a big community.
That's right.
Go out to the country, go out to your next country, go out to the country beyond that, and then come. But that hasn't happened. There's something going wrong, because if you can, the next door neighbours in cities don't know each other.
If you could take this village community and build it to a universal community.
We cannot leave Jack today without making mention of his atheism and his free thinking. These views were held without heat or rancour, but they were held firmly. And he would want us at this time to make this clear so that his passing would be in keeping with his living convictions.
I found that I just couldn't believe in the Bible anymore. I read the Bible through, and it was just a lot of legends to me. So I brought my children up without religion. 4 children, never one's been in any trouble. Morally, they're second to none. And I had a wee bit of ostracism to put up with when it became known that I was an atheist. Yes. But it didn't really bother me at the finish. I used to teach my children this: if you hurt society, you're hurting yourself for the simple reason you're a member of society. And that's the only way to teach children. Teach them, if they want to do a bad thing, let them do it, but don't kid yourself it's a good thing.
Face up to reality.
Make them face up to it. They're part of society. And whatever they do, it must have some bearing on the happiness or otherwise of society.
They did go to Sunday school occasionally, but I'll be perfectly honest, the reason they went to Sunday school was so that I could be shut of them without the worry of them and do work or bake or cook for an hour. But whatever they learned at school and at Sunday school, and they questioned the dad and I about when they came home, we explained to them our point of view, and we left them entirely on their own to form their own opinions.
Moral teachings have nothing to do with religion at all.
No.
Morals are social in their origin, I've always found. I respect your opinions, you respect mine, I respect your private property. I expect you to respect mine. If Christianity was as powerful as it's made out to be, there wouldn't be any damn policemen. We wouldn't need a police force. And if all Christians were as good as they make out to be, the prisons would be full of atheists. But that's not the case. They're full of Christians.
Westminster Abbey, April 1966. 2 months before he died, Jack had been invited to sing at a folk song club in Islington. He and Em came to see the Abbey in its 900th year. They liked the theme, One People, but not the monuments. Said Jack, the only war that's not celebrated here is the class war.
War again?
Yes, always war.
Wonder why they don't build a one too. Miners that's been killed. A lot of those been when no never been found.
No, true enough.
Jack saw all humanity as a single family. He saw the earth as one world in which we quarrel at our mortal peril. He believed that with care, with cooperation, and with sympathy, we could greatly improve human existence and happiness here on earth. This is to see life and to see it whole.
And that, in one way, is the end of the story. The man is dead, the pit closed, the community transformed. This, of course, is how history seems when you live in the middle of it.
My father always used to say, pit walks more than hewing. You've got to coax the coal along and not be riving and chewing. So jowl, jowl, and listen, lad, you'll hear that coal face walking. There's many a marrow